The Pittsburgh Pirates have finally moved on from manager Derek Shelton. It's been a long time coming. We're going to do an emergency pod here, so expect it to be a little shorter, but it's going to be action packed and fun filled, and probably the most smiles you'll see from me in quite some time.
You are Locked On Pirates, your daily Pittsburgh Pirates podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, emergency podcast time, people. Welcome to Locked On Pirates, the second time today. I'm your host, Gary. Still, even after the first time, listen, the Pirates relieved manager Derek Shelton of his duties as the manager for this baseball team. We've been calling for it for a while. I think I've done about 5 or 6 shows saying it was time for it now. I've written probably 8 or 12 pieces if you date back like just the beginning of this season, let alone what I did last year talking about it. The time had come a long time ago. The Pirates stubbornly held on to it like they didn't have to make this decision, but I think it was very clear that they absolutely had to make this decision. Derek Shelton had lost the room. It was painfully apparent that these guys did not want to play baseball, for him anyway. There was no energy the last few times they were out. I'm so happy they finally made this call. I do think it's strange that Ben Cherington gets to stay. He hitched his wagon to Derek Shelton pretty firmly, if you ask me. I don't know how much more firmly you can get than we're going to be accountable together. I mean, those were the exact words that came out of his mouth. So it's very hard for me to sit here and pretend that like this is a total fix and I should be completely happy. I will say, take the win today, everybody. This was the right move, even if it's not the only move that needed to happen. It is the most logical one you were going to get right now. I don't know how they get around the hypocrisy of it. Let's read some statements for you just so you understand exactly what was said. Again, I do feel it's a little cringeworthy that Ben Cherington is getting to say why he's firing somebody he claimed he was attached to, but we'll do it anyway. Derek worked incredibly hard and sacrificed a lot over 5+ years. His family became a big part of the Pirates family, and we will miss that. He's an incredibly smart, curious, and driven baseball leader. I believe he was the right person for the job when he was hired. I also believe that a change is now necessary. I wish Derek and his family all the best in their next chapter. And then to follow on, Bob Nutting has this to say. Derek is a good man who did a lot for the Pirates and Pittsburgh, but it was time for a change. The first quarter of the season has been frustrating and painful for all of us. We have to do better. I know that. Ben knows that. Our coaches know that. Our players know that. There's a lot of baseball left to be played. We need to act with a sense of urgency and take the steps necessary to fix this now to get back on track as a team and organization. That's pretty much the statements from the guys. And listen, I got no issue with anything they said there. You're not going to kick a guy on his way out the door. I do think that they owe us maybe a little bit more of an explanation of why now. And the reason I say that is because as bad as the beginning of this season has been, well, the end of last one was bad too. And I think most people saw that as a natural break point here. If not the year before, you get to a point with a manager. I've called Derek Shelton a starter manager from the time he got hired. He was not meant to oversee this thing through the duration. That's just not the way it's done. Really, in any sport. Whoever shepherds your kids through and gets your team to a certain point is usually not the guy that winds up being the one that takes you to the promised land if you're ever actually going to get there. I think Derek kind of proved that over the last few years. He wasn't that guy. So I was a little confused as to why we let it go on as long as they did. Probably because Ben Cherington, very loyal to him. So when they start talking about the new manager, Don Kelly, which I'll talk about in segment 2, I think their comments will read a little shallow because it's a lot of the same things that have been said about Derek Shelton, you know? hard worker, great guy, all this stuff. Nothing wrong with any of it. It's just a little distasteful. For those of you that cannot get the taste out of your mouth that Ben Cherington is still here, or maybe even it's Bob Nutting for you that has to be the one to go for you to finally smile. Listen, I get it. I agree with you. I do think they need to make more changes, and I think they will. But I do think that now was the time to pull the trigger on this, if only because if you've been watching these games, which God bless you if you have, it hasn't been an easy watch. But if you've actually been watching these games, it's more than just not getting hits. It's more than just making bad plays in the field. It's more than getting out pitched. It's more than any of that. It's an in general feeling that guys are disinterested. There's no energy, even from guys that do nothing but bring energy, like Lever Peguero. He's a ball of fire. If you can't keep him still. Andy Rodriguez is a guy you have a hard time keeping still. He's not playing right now, but he's still been around. And to see him like sitting in the dugout, like building pyramids out of cups and playing games instead of like doing the rah-rah stuff that he typically does in the dugout. And he's been a part of bad teams here. So let's not act like a bad team and he changed the way he is. All I'm saying is there was noticeable problems. And I'm getting a you're welcome from Cardinals fans. Thank you so much, actually. It's the first time the Cardinals have done something nice for us since they gave us Andy Van Slyke and whatnot. So I do appreciate that. And Mitch Keller will be Ben Cherington's last trade. Well, that's great. That's a completely different subject. Today, the celebration is Derek Shelton being out. Could this have been sooner in the season? I think so. I think it probably could have been. The decent start on that West Coast trip out to LA where they played both LA teams. I think if they hadn't performed the way they did and split those two series together, you'd probably be looking at it happening right then. And I think a big part of them probably wanted to wait until they started getting healthy again. But as baseball teams tend to kind of realize as they go along, it's really hard to ever get to a truly healthy team. It just doesn't happen. So I think it's interesting, the timing of it and everything. Let's see what Jeremy has to say here. If Nutting was willing to fire Shelton less than 40 games into the season, seems like they should have done this at the end of last year. Yeah, Jeremy, there's no denying what you're saying is accurate. If he was on that short of a leash, it feels to me like Shelton probably should have stood up a little bit taller than he did last year. I have it on pretty good authority that he wanted him gone last year, and Ben Cherington stood up for him. I don't know why Ben had that kind of standing, but he was given that kind of standing. I can't imagine that it was like, well, if you fire him, you're firing me too, because I have to feel that that even Bob Nutting probably would have been like, okay, because that's exactly what he did when he wanted to fire Clint Hurdle and Neil Huntington didn't want to. And it's the same situation that almost played out, which you'd really hope over time these people will start to learn some lessons, right? I have to take a quick break. Emergency show or not, still got to pay the bills. Stick with me. We're going to talk about Don Kelly and what we can expect. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. I love them when I'm on the golf course. They really help me get through 18. I wish they'd help my score a little more, but I certainly feel like I have a little more energy by the time I get done, which is always a good thing. So get snackin' and get crackin' with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Get the supplies you need from the site made for skilled trades, Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy to use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400 plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. All right, welcome back to Locked On Pirates. Lots of good comments coming into the chat here, and I'm going to try to cover them as best I can. A lot of them are basically like, okay, this should have been earlier and whatnot. Yes, we've covered that. I'm going to take the win. I'm happy he's gone. That's really all that I care about. Should Charrington be here to make any decisions moving forward? Probably not. I hear some people in here like, is Charrington's seat getting hotter now? I mean, it was already hot. It's just a timing thing with GMs. It's silly to try to sit here and think you're going to replace them with somebody new from outside the organization right now. And if you're not replacing him with somebody new from outside the organization, you're replacing him with somebody that has been here. I went over some of those options in this morning's Locked On Pirates. I'll go over more of them tomorrow, I'm sure, in the AMA. But they have some internal options that could help. I think you probably at this point want to see if you can get past the draft. But like I said, Nutting already kind of like let him win once with keeping the manager. I have a feeling this is a temporary victory as well for him. Let's talk a little bit about Donnie Kelly, because the first thing I can say is don't expect this to be a massive change in ethos or something where the team is suddenly doing 50 million things differently. Don Kelly has been the bench coach here with Derek Shelton for, since 2020. He's a Pittsburgh kid. He's the brother-in-law of Neil Walker. If you're a Pirates fan, you know who that is, and you understand why that's important. He's played for the Pirates all the way back in 2007. It probably doesn't change very much about how this season finishes, but it does probably inject the team with a little bit more energy. He's younger. He's a little bit more animated, I would say. Probably a little bit quicker tempered. Just from the few games that I've watched him interim manage. His post games, you'll probably get a little bit more detail. Derek Shelton was a bit more of a politician than I think Donnie is. So I think you can probably expect him to at least give you things that make you think a little bit more than just irritating isms that he tends to spout. The thing that's funny here is Ben Cherington kept calling Shelton his guy and always endorsed his full faith in everything. And when he does it again here in the quotes, like, I believe strongly Donnie is the right person to manage this team right now. He has the skills, experience needed to do this job well, and deeply cares about the Pirates and Pittsburgh. I will look forward to working with him even more closely. And therein lies the fear, if you ask me. Because a lot of the problem with this team really is the GM working so closely with the coaches and letting the analytics department take over so many of the decisions that get made. I don't know what kind of power Donnie's going to have. I just know that team looked lifeless. And you have to do something when your team looks that bad. They looked like they didn't care about anything. As soon as they would get a run scored against them, it was over. I think Donnie will maybe have a little bit more feel for the lineup. I thought he did some strange things even in his interim game this year, though. Like he pinch hit the last batter when they were down 4, and it was like, why? What's the purpose now? You should have done that a couple innings ago. I do have questions about how this works. I think he's qualified. Donnie has been suited by a lot of major league teams, so it's not as though he hasn't had interest. One he turned down and decided to stay here in Pittsburgh. That was early on, I believe 2021 was the time that he actually got an offer. After that, he hadn't gotten an offer that at least was publicized. But he's stuck around and he's certainly been in the conversations for everything. I'm sure he's qualified enough to do the job. The real poop is going to be how this team looks when they come back out. Like, you should see a different look on the faces, a little bit of a different jig in the step, a little bit of a fire in the ass, if you will, a little bit of a cattle prod type of action taking place. I want to see guys running balls out that they weren't running out last week. I want to see guys making better decisions because they know something's going to come. I don't think Donnie is a guy that's going to flip over tables any more than Shelton was. In fact, I think they agree on an awful lot. But I do think having a different guy at the helm that maybe has a little bit of a quicker trigger, maybe has a little bit of a different temperament, maybe is a little bit more plugged into what these guys are doing on the day-to-day, because Shelton had stepped back from so much of that and delegated. I don't even think he was checking in with what's going on in certain departments at times, as far as he's reading the reports, but he's not hearing like this bullpen in particular didn't go well and this move needs made here for this reason. It's more just he's doing what the analytics department's telling him to do. Donnie's going to at least give it a little bit of a human element. I will say that. He's a little bit of a Leland disciple. He's worked with Leland before, so you might get a little bit more Lelandisms. I think that would be interesting and good to see. Regardless, this is a positive step for this Pittsburgh Pirates baseball club. Yes, we absolutely need more. Let's deal with the happiness of what we got right this second. This should brighten up the AMA tomorrow, because a lot of your questions were basically about when this dude was getting fired. Well, he's been fired. So send me new questions now so that tomorrow's AMA can be about some other stuff. Maybe ask me some more questions about Donnie, because I'll have a whole day to research him a little bit more. This will be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it. Make sure you're there tomorrow. This was a real quick emergency pod, and I appreciate you joining me. Stay locked, everybody.